My mom sold my $4,000 gaming PC to buy her freeloader boyfriend a Christmas gift. Told me I should be thankful. She saved me electricity money, so I took brutal revenge and made her pay for it. Sup, Reddit. I never thought I would be sharing family drama on here. But imagine if you woke up one morning and your $4,000 gaming PC, the one you spent a year building, was just gone. The cables are still there, like it got raptured. Then your mom tells you she sold it to buy her boyfriend a Christmas present. I, 32 male, own my house, and I run a shop restoring vintage arcade cabinets. Pac-Man, Galaga, Street Fighter 2, all the classics. Life is normally simple. I fix broken stuff, I get paid, I go home. I bought this place 3 years ago and thought I had things figured out. Then my mom needed a temporary place to stay. Here's how we got here. My mom, Brenda, has always treated money like it's a wild animal that might bite her. Growing up, she watered down everything. Dish soap, shampoo, ketchup, you name it. When I was 16, she made me return a pair of sneakers I'd bought with my own money because she said they were too expensive. They were $40 from a clearance rack. The woman has issues with spending money that I'm pretty sure qualify as some kind of condition. She'd been living with her boyfriend Lyle for about 5 years. Lyle is 53 and somehow still living like the economy personally owes him an apology. Hasn't held a steady job the entire time I've known him. His main contribution to society seems to be having opinions about things he knows nothing about. So last March, I get a phone call. Mom is crying. The rent went up. Lyle's unemployment ran out. They're barely making it. Can they stay with me for just a little while? I'm not a monster. She's still my mom. I told her fine. They could stay for a few months, but there would be conditions. They'd need to contribute to groceries and utilities. They'd need to respect my space and my stuff. She agreed to everything immediately. They moved in on April 1st. The universe has a sick sense of humor. Lyle didn't just move in. He started acting like he'd been elected dad of the property. If I left clean laundry folded on my own couch, he'd relocate it like it violated some invisible code. If I tossed my work clothes over a chair for 10 minutes, he'd make a comment about keeping the place respectable. Then he'd turn around and eat whatever I had meal prepped like it was community property. I'd come home to empty containers in the trash and Lyle on my couch, stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey, explaining that a man shares with family. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. 2 weeks in, my rice cooker disappeared. When I asked about it, Mom said she'd sold it on the marketplace because we didn't need 2 ways to cook rice. We have a pot, she said. I pointed out that it was my rice cooker in my house that I used regularly. She told me I was being materialistic. A week later, my space heater vanished from the garage. The one I used when working on cabinets in the winter. Lyle said something about how space heaters are fire hazards, and he was doing me a favor. This man, who has contributed nothing to society in half a decade, was doing me a favor by selling my property. I sat them both down and explained very clearly that they were not to touch, move, sell, donate, or otherwise interfere with anything in my house. My stuff is my stuff. This is not negotiable. My mom did that thing where she gets teary-eyed and says she's just trying to help, and she doesn't understand why I'm being so hostile. She said boundaries are just walls people put up because they don't know how to love properly. By month 2, they still hadn't given me any money for utilities. Every time I brought it up, there was an excuse. I started documenting everything, just keeping notes on my phone. Something told me I'd need receipts eventually. Then came the refrigerator. I found my mom in the living room watching some reality show about people who don't clean their houses. Mom, where is my refrigerator? She didn't even look away from the TV. That thing was eating electricity like a monster. I looked up how much it cost to run a refrigerator per year, and it was literally robbery. We sold it on Marketplace for $200. I put $100 in the jar for groceries, and Lyle and I split the rest, as compensation for having to live next to that energy vampire. I stood there trying to process what I was hearing. She sold my refrigerator. My $800 refrigerator that came with the house. Because it cost maybe $40 a month in electricity. And she pocketed most of the money. Mom, that refrigerator cost $800 to replace. You sold it for $200. And you kept the money. She finally looked at me. You know what your problem is? You're materialistic. It's just a box that keeps food cold. There are children starving in Africa, and you're crying about a refrigerator. Family matters more than appliances. I made a sacrifice dealing with that loud, wasteful monster for weeks. Lyle and I deserved compensation for our emotional labor. We basically saved you from yourself. I just stared at her. Emotional labor. For living next to a refrigerator. Plus, that money is going toward our deposit for when we move out. You should be thanking me for being financially responsible. I'm teaching you a lesson about letting go of material possessions. The logic. The absolutely deranged logic. I told her she had two choices. Either she gave me the full $200 back immediately, or she and Lyle could find somewhere else to live. I gave her until the end of the week. What followed was 3 days of absolute chaos. My mom cried, she screamed, she told me I was abandoning her just like my father did. You're choosing money over your own mother, your own flesh and blood. Do you know what that says about you as a person? She said my dead grandmother would be ashamed of me for choosing money over family. She brought up every single thing she'd ever done for me. I gave birth to you. I raised you. I fed you. I clothed you. And this is how you repay me? Over a refrigerator? As if housing and feeding your kid isn't literally the bare minimum requirement of being a parent. Lyle tried to get involved, and I told him that since he hadn't contributed a single dollar to this household, he didn't get an opinion. By Sunday, my mom had tearfully returned the $200. I bought a used refrigerator from a guy on Marketplace for $350. I was out $150, and whatever respect I had left for my mother had basically evaporated. That night, I did something I should have done the first time she sold my stuff. I called the county's landlord-tenant hotline and read the actual rules instead of relying on vibes. I downloaded the notice to vacate forms, filled them out, printed 2 copies, and served them the next morning. 30 days to leave. My mom cried. Lyle called me dramatic. I didn't care. The eviction process had officially started. What I didn't know yet was how slow that process would be. Court dates, filing requirements, service attempts that kept failing because Lyle was supposedly never home, even though I literally saw him on my couch every single day. By Christmas, the case was still grinding through the system. They were still in my house. And apparently, my mom took that as permission to keep pushing. I put a lock on my bedroom door and made it clear that any further selling of my property would result in immediate eviction. They still hadn't given me any money for utilities. Every excuse in the book. I kept documenting everything. And then Christmas happened. I need you to understand something about my gaming setup before I continue. I'm in the arcade restoration business. Gaming is not just a hobby for me, it's adjacent to my entire livelihood. I keep up with modern gaming because understanding how games have evolved helps me appreciate and restore the classics. My gaming PC was not some casual purchase. I'd built it myself over the course of a year, upgrading piece by piece. High-end graphics card, top-of-the-line processor, custom cooling, the works. I had invested probably $4,000 into that machine by the time it was done. It was my baby. I used it for gaming, for testing software, for running diagnostics on some of the newer arcade boards that needed computer interfacing. It sat in my locked bedroom, the only room in the house my mom didn't have access to. But here's the thing about locks. They only work if you remember to lock them. Christmas Eve, I was exhausted. I'd been finishing up a big project, a complete restoration of a Tempest cabinet that had to ship on December 27th. I'd worked late, came home, fell into bed. I don't remember if I locked my door. I usually did. But that night, tired as I was, I honestly don't know. Christmas morning, I went to my room to grab something, and I noticed my desk looked different. It took me a minute. The cables were still there. The monitors were still there. The peripherals were still there. But my tower was gone. My custom-built $4,000 gaming PC was just not there anymore. I found my mom in the living room, sitting next to a small pile of wrapped presents. Lyle was there too, wearing a brand new leather jacket that I knew for a fact cost at least $300 or $400 because I'd seen it in a store window downtown. My mom was beaming, literally beaming. "Merry Christmas," she said. "I got Lyle a little something special this year." I pointed at the jacket. "Where did you get the money for that?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I've been saving here and there." I looked at Lyle in his new jacket. I looked at my mom's satisfied smile. I looked at the empty space where my PC used to be. "Mom," I said very calmly, "where is my computer?" Her face flickered for just a second. "What computer?" "My gaming PC, the one that was in my room, in my locked room. Where is it?" She sighed like I was being dramatic. "Oh, that thing. It was just collecting dust. You're always at work anyway. You never used it. I sold it to a guy on the marketplace. Got a decent price for it, too. Enough for Lyle's jacket and a few other things." I couldn't speak. I literally could not form words. $4,000. A year of careful building and upgrading. Gone. So she could buy her deadbeat boyfriend a jacket. Lyle was examining his new jacket, completely unbothered. "Nice quality," he said. "Real leather. You can tell by the smell." My mom reached behind her and pulled out a small wrapped package. "And I got you something too," she said, holding it out to me. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." I just stared at her. "Go on, open it." She was using that voice she uses when she wants to seem like a doting mother, the one that's always felt fake to me. I took the package. It was light. I unwrapped it. It was a pack of tube socks. A 3-pack of generic white tube socks. I looked at the price tag still stuck to the plastic. $6.99. She sold my $4,000 computer. She bought her boyfriend a jacket worth at least $300 or $400. And she got me $7 socks. She was watching my face expectantly. "I know socks aren't exciting," she said, "but you can never have too many socks. And I thought the ones you have are looking a little worn." I just stood there holding the socks. Lyle was still admiring his jacket. My mom was smiling like she'd done something generous. That's when Aunt Estelle showed up. She came over for Christmas brunch like she does every year. She walked in with a dish of her famous cinnamon rolls and immediately sensed the tension. "What's going on?" she asked. My mom immediately launched into hostess mode. "Oh, nothing. We were just exchanging gifts. Look at Lyle's new jacket, isn't it nice? I saved up for months." I found my voice. "She sold my gaming PC." Aunt Estelle stopped. "Your what?" "My gaming PC, the one I built. It cost me $4,000. She sold it to buy Lyle that jacket and got me these." I held up the socks. Aunt Estelle looked at my mom. "Brenda, you didn't." My mom's face hardened. "Oh, here we go. Everyone's going to gang up on me like always. It was just a computer. He's a grown man. He doesn't need to be playing video games anyway. I did him a favor. All that screen time isn't healthy." "It was worth $4,000, I said. "You sold it without my permission and bought your boyfriend a jacket." Lyle finally looked up from admiring himself. "Hey, I didn't ask her to buy me anything. Don't put this on me." My mom started getting worked up. "You know what? I am sick of being the villain in this family. I took that computer to help us all out. Do you know how expensive living here is? Do you know how hard it's been? And instead of being grateful that I'm trying to make the best of a bad situation, all you do is complain about stuff. Stuff, stuff, stuff. That's all you care about. You're cheap, you know that? You have this nice house and you won't even share it properly with your own mother. I'm scraping by and you're sitting on all this stuff that you don't even use." Aunt Estelle held up her hand. "Brenda, stop. You stole from your son. That's what happened here. You can dress it up however you want, but you went into his room, took his property, sold it, and kept the money. That's theft." My mom actually gasped. "How dare you? I am his mother. You can't steal from family." "Yes, you can," I said. "And you did. Get out." The room went very quiet. "Excuse me?" My mom's voice had gone cold. "You heard me. You and Lyle. Get out. Pack your things and leave. I'm done." My mom laughed. Actually laughed. "You can't kick me out. I live here. You've never paid a cent of rent or utilities. You've sold my property multiple times. You just stole and sold a $4,000 computer. I want you out of my house." That's when she got really nasty. "Fine, you know what? Fine. Give me back my gift then. If you don't want a relationship with your mother, you don't get to keep the socks. Give them back." I threw the socks at her. I literally threw them. They hit Lyle, actually, which wasn't intentional, but wasn't unwelcome. My mom lost her mind. "Don't you throw things at Lyle. Who do you think you are? I'm calling the police. This is assault. You can't treat us like this. We have rights." And she actually called the police. On Christmas. Because I threw a $6 pack of socks in the general direction of her boyfriend. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, both looking like they really wished they were anywhere else on Christmas morning. They separated everyone and took statements. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. The stolen computer. The months of sold property. The escalating situation. I showed them my documentation, all the photos and notes I'd been keeping. My mom, meanwhile, was putting on an Oscar-worthy performance. She was the victim. She was being thrown out on Christmas. She had nowhere to go. Her son was being violent. Those socks could have put Lyle's eye out. The officers were sympathetic to me, I could tell. But here's the thing about tenant law. Even though my mom and Lyle had never paid rent, never signed a lease, never contributed anything, they'd been living there for over 8 months. Under my state's laws, that gave them tenant rights. I couldn't just throw them out on Christmas. I'd have to go through the formal eviction process. One of the officers took me aside. "Look," he said, "I understand you're frustrated, and between you and me, I'd be furious too. But legally, our hands are tied. You can't lock them out. You can't remove their belongings. You can't shut off utilities to force them out. If you do any of that, they can actually sue you. Get a lawyer, do this by the book, and document everything. I'm sorry, I can't do more. The eviction was already in motion from the fridge incident. Now I had a reason to add a civil suit on top of it. My mom was smirking when the cops left. I know my rights, she said. You're stuck with us. Christmas was ruined, obviously. Aunt Estelle stayed for a little while, trying to be a buffer, but eventually she had to go. My mom and Lyle retreated to their room. I sat in my living room looking at the spot where my PC used to be. I did my research. I spent the rest of Christmas Day on my laptop looking up exactly what I was and wasn't legally required to provide to unwanted guests who had established tenancy. The answer was, not much. I had to provide access to running water and working heat. That was basically it. Everything else was a courtesy, and I was fresh out of courtesy. The next day, December 26th, I changed the Wi-Fi password. When my mom asked for the new one, I told her the internet was down. She believed me for about 3 hours until she saw me streaming something on my phone. That's when the fun began. Mom demanded I give her the Wi-Fi password. I told her I'd be happy to share it if she started paying for a portion of the bill. She said she shouldn't have to pay for something that's already there. I said that's not how utilities work. She called me cheap. I reminded her that she'd sold my $4,000 computer for jacket money. She didn't have a response to that. No Wi-Fi meant no streaming. My mom, it turns out, was absolutely addicted to watching old reality shows. I'm talking shows from the early 2000s. Stuff about rich housewives yelling at each other, cooking competitions from before HD existed, dating shows where everyone had frosted tips, garbage television from a bygone era. She watched it constantly. It was basically her entire personality. Without Wi-Fi, she couldn't stream anything. She tried using her phone's data, but blew through her monthly limit in about 2 days. She asked if she could use my streaming accounts. I told her I'd canceled them. I hadn't, obviously. I'd just changed the passwords. But she didn't need to know that. By day 3 without her shows, she was losing her mind. She actually came to me and tried to negotiate. Maybe if she paid just a little something toward the Wi-Fi? I told her the price was $4,000 for the computer she'd sold. She told me I was being ridiculous and that I needed to let that go because it was in the past. I let her stew. Meanwhile, I'd stopped cooking for the household entirely. I bought my own groceries and kept them in a mini fridge in my locked bedroom. The mini fridge wasn't me being petty. It was me getting tired of Lyle eating my food while acting like my laundry needed his approval. I cooked my own meals. When my mom complained that I wasn't making dinner for everyone like a family, I reminded her that we weren't a family. We were landlord and unwanted tenants. And this landlord wasn't running a restaurant. She and Lyle had to start buying their own food. Watching my mom have to spend her own money on groceries was genuinely entertaining. She'd come back from the store with the cheapest off-brand everything, complaining about prices the whole time. She tried to guilt me into sharing my food by making comments about how good it smelled, how she used to cook my favorite meals when I was growing up, how families should share with each other. I just ate my dinner and didn't respond. New Year's came and went. No celebration. I spent it working on another restoration project. My mom and Lyle sat in their room doing nothing because they had no internet and no streaming and no ability to entertain themselves like adults. January brought escalation. My mom was getting desperate. She missed her shows. She missed not having to pay for things. She missed having someone to mooch off of. She started trying different tactics. First was the guilt offensive. Lots of crying, lots of talk about how she sacrificed so much to raise me, how I was breaking her heart, how she never thought her own son would treat her this way. I let her cry. I'd spent my whole life feeling guilty when she turned on the waterworks. Not anymore. Then came the anger phase. Screaming matches in the kitchen. Accusations thrown at me. I was selfish. I was cruel. I was ungrateful. Lyle tried to get involved and I shut that down immediately. I told him that if he wanted to keep living in my house, even temporarily, he'd stay out of it. He backed down. Lyle always backed down when directly confronted. Then came the fake niceness. Suddenly, my mom was sweet as pie, making small talk, asking about my day, complimenting my work. It was so transparent it was almost funny. I played along but gave her nothing. Yes? No. Fine. That's nice. Gray Rock City. Through all of this, the eviction process was moving forward. And by moving forward, I mean crawling at a pace that would embarrass a sedated turtle. My state has strong tenant protections, which I normally think is a good thing, but in this case, it meant I had to follow very specific steps with very specific timelines. Notice periods, court dates, waiting for responses, forms that had to be filed in triplicate, service attempts that kept failing because apparently Lyle was never home even though I literally saw him on my couch every single day. It was going to take months, maybe longer if they kept finding ways to delay. But I had a different card to play. See, my mom had sold my computer. That wasn't just a jerk move, that was theft. And I had documentation. Photos of my setup from before it was stolen. The receipt from when I'd bought the graphics card. My mom's own Facebook Marketplace listing, which a friend had screenshot for me before it was deleted. A text message from my mom, where she'd admitted to selling it. In February, I filed a civil suit for the value of the computer. $4,000 plus filing fees. Against both my mom and Lyle. Lyle benefited from the theft. He got that leather jacket. He got other gifts. The law calls that conversion and unjust enrichment. I wasn't about to let him skate by just because my mom was the one who posted the listing. Watching Lyle get served at my house like he'd just been drafted into accountability was better than any Christmas movie ending. He looked like someone hit pause on his brain. My mom got served right after him. She went white, then red. Then she started screaming about how I couldn't sue my own mother, how this was going to tear the family apart, how I was going to regret this. I told her she should have thought about that before she stole from me. The court date was set for March. Then it got pushed to late March because of court backlog. My mom didn't get a lawyer because lawyers cost money, and spending money was against her religion. She said she'd represent herself because how hard could it be? Lyle was supportive of this decision because Lyle was an enabler who had never wanted anything in his life. Meanwhile, my eviction case was also crawling forward. It didn't line up neatly with the civil case. Small claims moved faster because it's built for speed. Eviction court is basically a DMV with a gavel. The eviction hearing got bumped once because the court was backed up, and once because Lyle somehow wasn't properly served the first time, even though he was literally on my couch every day. I had to take a Saturday off from an install job because I had to sit in court for 3 hours just to be told come back next month. Lost that client too. He found someone else. The civil case came first. I showed up with my documentation, photos, receipts, screenshots of the marketplace listing, text messages, a clear timeline of events. My mom and Lyle showed up together. My mom had an attitude and a fundamental misunderstanding of how courts work. Lyle looked like he was attending his own funeral. Her defense was essentially that I'd given her permission to sell it because I wasn't using it enough, and that as my mother, she had a right to make decisions about my possessions. Lyle tried to claim he didn't know the jacket was bought with stolen money, and that he'd offered to pay my mom back for it, but she refused. The judge was not impressed with either of them. When the judge ruled in my favor and ordered them jointly and severally liable for $4,000 plus court costs, the judge explained jointly and severally, like Lyle was 5. His face did the math in real time. My mom started crying about how she didn't have that kind of money, how she was barely surviving, how this was going to ruin her. Lyle sat there looking sick. The judge asked about their finances. Did they have any assets? Any savings? My mom said no. Absolutely nothing. She was destitute. Here's where it got interesting. About a month earlier, I'd noticed my mom acting cagey about her phone. More secretive than usual, hiding the screen when I walked by. Then I overheard her talking to someone about a transfer and account numbers. A few days later, I saw a piece of bank mail on the counter with an account number suffix I didn't recognize. She snatched it up real fast when she saw me looking. I mentioned this to the court, said I had reason to believe she was hiding assets. The judge asked my mom directly if she had any other accounts. She said no. He asked if she'd be willing to provide a financial disclosure. She got squirmy. He ordered it anyway. That's where the forgotten account showed up. Just over $11,000, sitting in a savings account she'd supposedly forgotten existed. While crying poor and selling my stuff and refusing to contribute to groceries or utilities, she'd been sitting on 11 grand. The judge was not pleased about being lied to. My mom tried to backtrack, saying she'd forgotten about that account. It was old. She didn't really have access to it. Nobody believed her. The judge ordered her to pay the full judgment from that account within 30 days. She didn't pay in 30 days. Shocking, I know. She tried the broke routine again, hoping I'd just give up. I didn't. My attorney handled the collection process, filing all the necessary paperwork to go after the money. Doesn't matter who stole it. If she dodged payment, collections could come for him too. Funny how money appears when garnishment starts getting mentioned and debtors' exams get scheduled. She suddenly discovered she could access that account after all. But that wasn't even the best part. The best part was Lyle's face when he found out. Remember, Lyle had been living with my mom for 5 years. They'd been claiming poverty the entire time. He'd been wearing worn-out clothes, eating cheap food, making do with nothing, because supposedly they were broke. And now he was finding out, in open court, that his girlfriend had been hiding $11,000 from him. He looked at her like he'd never seen her before, which in a way, he hadn't. They drove home separately. The eviction case dragged behind the civil case like a shopping cart with a bad wheel. But here's the thing about my mom. She couldn't help herself. She missed a filing deadline. She didn't show up to one hearing because she thought it was optional. She kept doing stuff that made the court stop taking her seriously. Once she had a judgment against her for theft and got caught lying about her finances, the court stopped giving her grace. The eviction finally went through about 3 weeks after the civil case wrapped up. My mom and Lyle were given 14 days to vacate. 14 days of absolute silence in my house. My mom didn't speak to me. Lyle didn't speak to my mom, which was honestly kind of awkward. They packed their stuff, which didn't take long since they'd arrived with almost nothing and had sold most of what they'd acquired. Lyle carried his jacket out like it was worth going bankrupt over. It looked less cool when it came with a court judgment, and on the appointed day they left. No goodbye, no apology, nothing. Just the sound of Lyle's car pulling out of my driveway. I stood in my empty guest room and just breathed. 8 months of stress and drama and stolen property and guilt trips and passive aggression, and it was finally over. I changed all the locks that afternoon. $200 to a locksmith on short notice, plus another $150 for the security system install. Add that to the court filing fees, the missed client, the replacement refrigerator from months ago, and this whole mess had cost me close to $700 on top of everything else. But you know what? Worth it. I treated myself to a nice dinner, started planning my new gaming PC build, funded in part by the $4,000 I'd eventually received after the collection process forced her to pay up. Life was good again. For about 3 months. Then my mom showed up at my door. She looked rough. Whatever had happened between her and Lyle after the savings account revelation, it clearly hadn't been good. She was alone. She was wearing clothes I recognized from years ago, and she was holding a small gift bag. "Can we talk?" she said. I didn't let her in. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. "Please," she said. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm trying to make things right. I brought you something." She held out the gift bag like it was a peace treaty. I took it and looked inside. It was a tiny hotel bar of soap, still in that crinkly wrapper like it had been sitting in a drawer for years. No note, no receipt, just soap. She stole $4,000 from me, got evicted, and came back with a free apology you'd find next to a motel sink. "I thought of you," she said, like this was progress. The wrapper had a hotel logo on it. "Wow," I said. "Hotel soap. You really went all out. It's the thought that counts." "Is it, though? Because the thought here seems to be that I'm worth about as much as something you grabbed from a motel bathroom. That's not fair. I'm trying. Things have been really hard since Lyle and I split up. I don't have money for fancy gifts." "Right. But you had $4,000 in a secret savings account. That was different." "How?" "That was for emergencies. And stealing from your son wasn't an emergency that required giving any of it back?" She did the teary-eyed thing. Her voice started wavering. "I've had time to think about everything. About what I did. About how I treated you. I was wrong. I know that now. I just want another chance. I'm your mother. And I'm the guy whose stuff you sold on Facebook Marketplace. I was desperate. You were greedy. Please don't do this. I came all this way. I'm trying to apologize. Can't you see that? I see a woman who stole from me, lied to me, got evicted, and showed up 3 months later with hotel soap thinking that makes us even. I never said we were even. I said I wanted to start over, to rebuild our relationship. There's nothing to rebuild, Mom. You burned it all down. But I'm your mother. You can't just cut me out of your life like this. Watch me." Her face changed. The sadness flickered off like a light switch. "You know what?" she said. "You've always been like this. Cold. Ungrateful. I gave you everything growing up, and this is how you repay me? You gave me everything? You gave me abandonment issues and a masterclass in manipulation. That's about it. I raised you alone. You raised me poorly. How dare you after everything I sacrificed? What did you sacrifice exactly? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing you've ever sacrificed is other people's trust." She was shaking now, either from anger or the realization that the guilt trip wasn't working. Probably both. "Fine," she said. "Then give me back the soap. If you don't appreciate the gesture, I'll give it to someone who does. I'll give it to Lyle. At least he understands forgiveness." "I thought Lyle left you because you lied to him about the money. We're working things out. He called me last week. He misses me. Unlike some people, he knows the value of family. The value of family. That's rich coming from someone who sold my refrigerator." She reached for the gift bag. I stepped back. No, I said. You gave this to me. It's mine now. My mom always gave free gifts. Birthday presents were hand-me-downs or things she'd gotten at church rummage sales. Christmas meant re-gifted stuff still in someone else's wrapping paper. So of course her apology was free too. That tracked perfectly. That broke something in her. She started yelling. In my front yard. Full volume. Calling me ungrateful. Calling me cruel. Saying she should have known I'd turn out like this. Saying she regretted everything she'd ever done for me. My neighbor came out to see what was going on. Another neighbor across the street. My mom didn't care. She just kept screaming. I pulled out my phone and called the police. She stopped mid-sentence. What are you doing? What does it look like? You're trespassing on my property, creating a disturbance, and refusing to leave. I'm calling the cops. You wouldn't. Watch me. I made the call, reported a trespassing situation, gave my address. My mom stood there frozen, probably expecting me to hang up, to back down, to give in like I always had before. I didn't. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. Different officers than before, but they took the situation seriously. I explained that this person had been legally evicted from my property 3 months ago and was now back, refusing to leave, causing a disturbance. I mentioned the prior civil case, the history of stolen property. My mom tried her victim routine, but it didn't play as well this time. The officers asked her to leave. She refused. They asked again. She demanded to know her rights. They explained that she had no right to be on private property after being asked to leave. She called them fascists. They escorted her off my property. She went, but not quietly. She was still yelling as she got in her car, promising this wasn't over, saying she'd make me pay. The usual stuff. The next day, I filed for a restraining order. It took a few weeks, but it went through. My mom now legally cannot come within 500 feet of me or my property. If she does, she gets arrested. No warnings, no discussions, just handcuffs. She's tried to reach out a few times through other family members. Aunt Estelle has been a good buffer, shutting her down whenever she starts trying to use relatives as messengers. My mom's new narrative is that I'm mentally unwell and that she's just a concerned mother trying to reconnect with her troubled son. Nobody who knows the actual story believes her. Last I heard, she and Lyle did get back together. Apparently, his attachment to her increased significantly after he found out about the secret savings account. I guess he figured if she'd hidden money once, she might do it again, and he wanted to be around for the next windfall. They deserve each other. As for me, I finished my new gaming PC build last month. Better than the original in every way. Restraining order on file. Security cameras covering every angle of my property. A quiet house with nobody selling my stuff or guilt-tripping me over electricity bills. She brought soap. I gave her paperwork. Life is good. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.